Very often it is believed that reasons behind lack of investment activities are crisis phenomena that we see now in Europe and the US, and very often we do not recognize that investment attractiveness depends on the actions that on the part of some entities of the Russian Federation. A question to Mr. Beglov. You are representing the President of Russia in your territory, and you have recently launched the research on investment attractiveness in the Central Federal Territories regions. What could you point out to for foreign investors based on that analysis? A very good morning, distinguished friends. Sergey, thank you very much for the question. I would like to share some insights, not just with foreign investors, but with our national investors. Our legislation basically treats them on an equal basis, irrespective of the country of origin, be it domestic or foreign. So some considerations are, first of all, what is the Central Federal Territory? It's a unique region which has 18 Russian constituencies. Since Moscow is exactly there, the specificity of the territory have an impact on the investment landscape of the capital. So the Central Federal Territory is by far the territory of contrasts. Contrast one, it features more resources in the country than any other, and at the same time we have the largest regional balance here. We are home to more than 80% of all the cash flows in Russia, more than half of the scientific potential, about 25% of all the fixed assets. At the same time, the rich Moscow is surrounded by a ring of regions which are of a totally different economic caliber, and some of them are devastated in some of the segments, and living standards are very, very different. Just some 200, 300 kilometers away, the situation is totally different. Therefore, Moscow has an even greater concentration of resources and a greater imbalance. Contrast two, it has the highest developed transportation, energy, and production infrastructure, but basically there are no natural resources. It has no large businesses apart from national companies which are headquartered in Moscow. That means that the powerful infrastructure is not used on an even basis and efficiency. Contrast three, we have the highest concentration of the population, yet there isn't a single city with more than a million of population apart from Moscow. We have more than 27% of the nation's population, up to 40 million. So it happens that the Central Federal Territory and the ring of regions around Moscow are mostly smaller towns and settlements. It's difficult to speak about such a situation as being a sustainable economic environment. It should be more balanced. We know from the physics lessons that such structures feature the greatest potential for development and investment development too. So what is this context for Moscow and its surrounding regions? Most of investments and ideas are attracted by Moscow with its tremendous opportunity. The regions with different levels of opportunities, which have no oil or other mineral resources, feature much less chances for improvements. So this is at a first glance, but not more than that. The situation is not that straightforward. We've looked into investment attractiveness of the regions by a number of indicators which describe investment climate, which then integrates in the regional index. And thus the situation is very curious. Looking at separate indicators and the integral index, Moscow is by far the leader, which is only to be expected based on the contrast that we've mentioned. Yet there is one indicator in which Moscow is ranking last, 17th. This is economic activity, which is predicated not by absolute figures, but rates of growth. In the products output, and unemployment rates. The fact that Moscow is lagging behind is not surprising. This is to be expected because objectively the situations in the region makes them more intensive in terms of development, producing miracles. Otherwise they will drown, and they will have to put in absolutely different efforts to bring in investments. So what's the result? Moscow government understands clearly that there is time for qualitative changes in the investment attraction, and this is why we are having this forum and discussion. I believe that the quality of investments and the key target which the Moscow team led by Sobyanin has in front of them is the new mentality in terms of bringing investments to Moscow. It's not just that it can do that. It is very interested in doing that and to be more specific in investments. They do not need speculative investments. They need long-term, sustainable investments of the kind which feature intellectual resource and higher added value, the ones which are most efficient in terms of putting to work its scientific, HR potential and so on, and which generate quality jobs for the Muscovites. The regions, the satellite regions, will be competing fiercely for investments, but this will not be a competition story. On the contrary, bringing in high-quality investments, Moscow is interested in having strong neighbors around. So putting in place high-tech and science-intensive projects will entail the growth in adjacent segments, and this synergy will be visible throughout the region of the territory. And this kind of cooperation will not be about interregional competition, but rather cooperation. We see the changes in the investment philosophy of Moscow and the new steps which they undertake. One is visible even now in the rating of the largest territory cities of the globe. Moscow, in just 2 years, made it to the 6th place. New territories provide new opportunities for investments, new space for maneuver and growth. And the May decree of the President of Russia on the long-term state policy gives a very clear direction of investment policies. This is to put in place 25 million jobs to increase the share of science-intensive businesses and increase the volume of business revenues to about 30%, 25% of GDP. So to do that, in every constituency, we have the so-called investment ombudsman. Right away, we see that about half of all the claims are claims against administrative barriers, and another 15% for abuse of power by authorities. So the next came the initiative to put in place the Institute of the Ombudsman to protect entrepreneurs' rights with the network throughout the nation, which should be put to work by the 1st of December, which Mr. Dvorkovich mentioned. What else is done? In the territory of the Central Federal Territory, we have 87 development institutes. Those are specialized economic zones, industrial park, techno parks, and so on. Majority of them have been put in place upon the initiative of regional authorities, but about 1/3 was generated by business community by itself, and they have quite an impressive success story. All those macro and micro reforms and lateral reforms should first and foremost target enhancement of living standards of the population. This is paramount. So from this point of view, bringing in more investments and better landscape is the absolute priority for all the regions and the Moscow city per se. So every success to us all. Thank you.